Byron Buxton is willing to waive his no-trade clause to come to Atlanta. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Wednesday, December 3rd. Your source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're proudly part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com to get started. A lot of stuff to get to today. A lot of surprising number of signings, whether it's the Braves bringing in Danny Young on a split contract. Again, a reminder of what that is and why I think this deal is a bigger deal than maybe we're expecting, as well as some conversation about what the Braves should do at DH. You need to replace the 23 and 24 production of Marcell Ozuna, right? We'll make the case, should it be an everyday starter that you bring in either defensively or at DH, or should you build the DH out of multiple pieces? Recreate Ozuna in the aggregate, if you will. But first, we've got to talk about the report from ESPN. This was Jeff Passan and Kylie McDaniel. Fun fact, Kylie used to work for the Braves. But they were writing up a list on ESPN, non-paywalled, believe it or not, of the top 25 potential trade candidates in baseball, along with percentages of all of these guys getting moved. Number 5 on the list, and the cover athlete for the article, Byron Buxton of the Minnesota Twins. And the very first sentence of the write-up, quote, Buxton is willing to waive his no-trade clause, and not just for Atlanta. He's a Georgia native, that's in parentheses there, which puts the Twins in an interesting position. The previous reporting we had gotten on this, back up a little bit. Byron Buxton, number 2 overall pick by the Twins in 2012, out of Appling County High School in Baxley, Georgia. He was born in Baxley. He went to high school in Baxley. A listener and a friend sent me a video, I think it was last week, about Buxton building a new large home in Baxley. But despite that, Atlanta and the Mets reportedly both reached out before the trade deadline to see about acquiring him, and they were told no. He did not want to waive his no-trade clause. He has a full no-trade clause through 2026. We'll get to his contract in a minute. So he did not move. He likes it in Minnesota. He wanted to stay in Minnesota. But after they traded away like 40% of the roster at the trade deadline. His performance dropped in the back half of the year, and he indicated that he would be willing to waive his no-trade clause if the Twins continue to tear down and get rid of pieces. They're widely expected to move starters Joe Ryan and or Pablo Lopez this winter. We'll get into that too. So if Byron Buxton gets moved and they give the percentage chance at 35% here, it feels like Atlanta would be one of the favorites simply because that connection and the fact that they were one of 2 teams that were reported, along with the Mets, to have reached out to the Twins about Buxton at the trade deadline. And I'm not conflicted on this one. If you have an opportunity to get Byron Buxton, I think you need to get Byron Buxton. Whenever you have the chance to add a very good player, I don't think it should be a very difficult conversation, right? It's going to cost you prospects. You have to figure out what you're comfortable with. I put out a question on social media on Tuesday after this report came out. And I said, hey, if it required trading away, let's say both Didier Fuentes and J.R. Ritchie, right? Like, would you make that deal? Or do you want to find a way to keep Ritchie or find a way to keep Fuentes? 364 votes in like the 6 hours I had it up. 85% of people said, see you guys, trade them both out of there. Now, I did put in there package deal, right? See if you can get Pablo Lopez or Joe Ryan. Pablo Lopez feels more likely to move. Joe Ryan is in his ARB 2 year. He's projected to make around $5.8 million. Lopez is making $21.75 million for each of the next 2 years, just under the Atlanta max of 22. And then taking on Buxton would mean also taking on his $15+ million a year for the next 3 years. So by far the biggest salary relief for Minnesota, which is a franchise that has debt. They sold a minority stake in the organization or in the franchise to pay down their debt. The biggest cash flow relief is for them to move both Lopez and Buxton. And Buxton's contract is really interesting. $15.1 million for each of the next 3 years through his age 34 season with different incentives. He can earn up to $2.5 million in plate appearance incentives. It's like $500,000 a piece, and there's 5 different milestones: 502, 533, 567, 600, and 625. And then he can earn MVP bonuses for his finish. Anywhere in the top 10 can get him somewhere between $3 and $8 million. So if he maximizes everything, he can get an extra $10.5 million in salary if he wins MVP with at least 625 plate appearances. An incentive-laden deal. This is the kind of thing that a lot of other teams do this. The Braves don't do this. They don't do incentive deals. You just get paid what you get paid. But in Buxton's case, it makes sense, right? 2025 was only the 3rd season of his career he's played in more than 100 games. Here's the thing to understand about Byron Buxton. When Byron Buxton is healthy, he is one of the best players in baseball. His sprint speed is still elite despite him playing last year at age 31. His defense is well above average. He was a Silver Slugger. He was an All-Star this year, hit .264 with an .878 OPS, 35 home runs, 24 stolen bases. You get him in a lineup with protection from Ronald Acuna Jr. and Matt Olson, with Antoine Richardson in his ear, and a full season of health, you could see Byron Buxton being a 40-40 guy. The issue is that full season of health. He had 140 games in 2017, and then he had 102 games in 24 and 126 games last year. The only 3 seasons in his 11-year career that he has played over 100 games. So the thought process here, if you were to get Byron Buxton, is he would be there's 2 things that Byron Buxton does for you. Thing number 1 is he's in the lineup almost every day. Is he the DH? Is he at left field? Is he in right field? My thought process is you're rotating Acuna, Profar, and Buxton through your DH spots. And so pretty much every day, one of those 3 guys is your DH. You're rotating those 3 guys through. You could, if his health was okay, if he was doing well, if he was playing well, feeling good, maybe you play him in the field more often over a Jurickson Profar, who defensively is not great, giving Ronald the days off that he need, or the half days off that he needs. The downside here, obviously, 1 is you sacrifice the ability to put Drake Baldwin at DH. We're going to get to that in the next segment, by the way. We're going to talk more about how to recreate Marcell Ozuna in the aggregate at DH. But the thought process for me is if he's playing in a corner and rotating through DH, hopefully you can help him stay healthy versus him playing center field almost every day, which a lot of these seasons, that's what he was doing. He was playing predominantly center field and DHing a little bit. 23, he DH'd almost every single day. 80 DH appearances, 5 pinch hit appearances, no days in the field in 23. But like last year, 8 days at DH, 118 games in center. In 24, 6 games at DH, 94 games in center. If you put him in left or in right versus center, does that save wear and tear on his legs so that one, he can steal, two, he can stay healthy? But the other thing it gives you too is it gives you Michael Harris insurance. If Michael Harris stumbles and struggles again, then you can take Harris and you can bench him. You can send him to Gwinnett, whatever you have to do, and you have somebody who is an everyday caliber bat who can play center field at a good level. Eli White's a great center fielder. Offensively, it doesn't feel like that's the optimal way to use him, is playing him every day from an offensive perspective. So having Buxton gives you the insurance, provided that Buxton's healthy, to send Michael Harris down for some extra work. And I do think it would also help Buxton to get out of Minnesota. He was playing really well. He had a slow start in April, hit like 751 OPS. But after that, May, 949 OPS, June, 1.86, July, an 872, and then the trade deadline happened, and everything collapsed. He hit 222 in August. He hit 233 in September because the team was awful around him. He had no protection. So adding Byron Buxton gives you makes your lineup fantastic, provided he's healthy. But before injury strike, you should have the ability to move guys around, give guys days off, and keep everybody healthy from lesser wear and tear and more frequent days off. If you have a chance to do it, I think you need to do it. And the question is going to come down to, one, can you beat a Mets package? Or can you beat a Dodgers package or whoever it is else that tries to get him? And which prospects do you have to part with to do it? I'm more willing to part with prospects outside of maybe like a Herson Waldrop than a lot of other people are. And so that's kind of the question is, who do you have to lose to get Byron Buxton? But if you have a chance, Atlanta needs to be on the phone. I think you at least have to give it a really good try to get Buxton out of Minnesota. In just a minute, let's talk about that DH situation. Okay, if you don't get Buxton, what do you do at DH? Do you try to find another everyday DH to replace Ozuna? Do you try to recreate him with internal pieces? Do you blend internal pieces and a signing? We'll talk about the possible options next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Encase Cards, custom card manufacturer. Love these guys and what they do. Fantastic new interface on the website, by the way. You upload your source photos. U Sports make a ton of sense, right? Soccer, hockey, football, basketball, baseball, like any of those kind of, lacrosse, whatever. And then you select a design. They have different preset themes that have backgrounds, holographic options, places for text, and all of that. You choose your base design, and then their designing tool lets you jump in there and you can edit, you can customize it to your heart's content. If you need help, white glove support, but you customize, you get to see the proof of your card. Once you approve, they print it on high quality cardstock, they slab it, they put it in a really convenient plastic case that has a built-in stand. Lots of different colors you can choose for the case too. And they ship it to you. Makes a great gift. Christmas, obviously, is what to think of, but, wedding gift for sports fans in your life, all that kind of stuff. So, ncasecards.com, ncasecards.com, promo code Braves Today gets you 20% off. Again, ncasecards.com, ncasecards.com, promo code Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about designated hitter. Because, and I think I made this case on the show yesterday. I may not have gotten it out, but in the newsletter yesterday, I made the argument that one of the issues you had in 2025 was you didn't have the MVP caliber production of Marcell Ozuna to fall back on. Think about 24 and how you had so many injuries on offense. And I talked about that, right? You had Whit Merrifield. who got, somebody reminded me in the YouTube comments, by the way, I forgot he got injured the first day he was with the team before he officially got in the lineup. Like, that's how cursed the Braves were last year. He had stitches in his hand while taking infield grounders at second base. And then if I remember right, he had a foot injury later and he couldn't play the outfield because of it. It was a whole thing. But Marcell Ozuna hit over 300 in 2024. He was an MVP finisher. The idea there was he was able to give you a floor of offensive production amidst all of these other issues in the lineup. Last year, you didn't have that. And I would actually go even farther to argue in 2024, yes, Chris Sale won a Cy Young, but Marcell Ozuna was the more valuable player to the Braves. Atlanta's pitching staff as a whole led the league in Fangraphs WAR at 23.6, and Sale had 6 of that WAR. But if you take Chris Sale's WAR out of that calculation, and we're not going to just replace him with an average player to replace him, that WAR total drops from first to still top 10. It's 7th in baseball without Chris Sale. The offense was 17th in Fangraphs WAR at 18.7. And if you take Ozuna out of that lineup, you remove him from the offense and his WAR from the offense, they drop to 23rd. They're barely above the then Oakland Athletics, who lost 93 games. So I would argue that Marcell Ozuna was more valuable to the Braves than Chris Sale was in 24. And you have to replace him. Across those 2 seasons, he had a combined 289, 79 homers, 204 RBI. What do you do? Option 1, very clear. You just re-sign Marcell Ozuna, assuming he's healthy, right? Assuming the hip injury is fixed. And we've seen photos of him hanging out with Ha-Seong Kim at a basketball game in Korea and stuff. We haven't seen did he have surgery? Is he fully healthy? We don't know any of that stuff. But assuming he's healthy, then you can bring back a healthy version of Marcell Ozuna, and you can bring back his clubhouse leadership. Remember, ton of dudes went on the record talking about how Marcell Ozuna helped them. Michael Harris talked about it. Chris Sale talked about it, about how Marcell Ozuna helped him when he was having that early season slump, because Ozuna noticed some stuff as a hitter that he thought he could, that he would have attacked Sale this way had they been facing off with one another. So he was helping guys all over. Every time you saw him during a game, they shot to the dugout, flash over the camera at the dugout, he's talking to a pitcher, he's talking to a hitter, and he's helping guys out with stuff. If you wanted to aim higher than Ozuna and a full-time DH, you could theoretically sign Kyle Schwarber. I mean, that is technically out there. He also, amazing offensive hitter. He led the National League in homers with 56. He led all of baseball with 132 RBI. He's also known as a really good clubhouse leader. But the projection for his contract, shout out John Becker from Fangraphs for compiling all these in a Google Doc that he shared with me. The projection for Schwarber is $32 million a year on a 4-year deal. Would $128 million bucks would be the new free agency high under AA. So another option here is just get an everyday hitter. Doesn't have to be a full-time DH. Just get an everyday hitter and rotate through, wherever he happens to play. Corner outfield is the most logical thing. If it's Buxton, he can play center, he can play left, he can play right. You put him anywhere. Ryan O'Hearn is a free agent, traded from the Orioles to the Padres. He plays first base and corner outfield. More first than corner outfield, which is kind of the problem here. But he hit 281, 63 RBI, 366 on base. He does pretty well. His OPS split against lefties and righties is less than 40 points. Less than 40 points different. He had a 919 OPS with runners in scoring position last year. So, if you can't get Byron Buxton, you could do something like Ryan O'Hearn. He would probably, assuming you're okay with him in the outfield, he's probably playing on a near everyday basis because he's not vulnerable against lefties or righties. And you're rotating him and both Profar and Acuna through your DH spots. Because Profar and O'Hearn are probably similar defensively. Like O'Hearn, I think, was neutral in right and was like a couple ticks below on outs above average. Like a couple ticks negative in left. Profar was negative in left. I mean, you're 6 of one, half dozen of the other in this case. But you could just rotate them all through. And the first time somebody got hurt, now you have an everyday caliber bat to replace the hurt guy. Option 3 here is build a DH in the aggregate. And by that, what I'm referring to is when you look at the way a general distribution of facing righties versus facing lefties, 675 or so plate appearances your DH is going to get batting towards the top of your lineup, right? Roughly 485, 490 of them are against righties, and about 185 to 190 will come against lefties. So the trick here is you find somebody who can hit righties, preferably who can also play in the field. And then you find a right-handed hitter to take care of the short side of that platoon. And a great example of this is the 2024 Arizona Diamondbacks. They had Jock Peterson. He got 400 plus plate appearances against righties, hit 281 with, can't do math in my head, with a 920 something OPS, 22 homers, 60 RBI. Randall Grichuk was their main lefty bat. He got 184 plate appearances against lefties, hit 319 with 9 something OPS. Like, they combined two guys. And at the time, Jock was still playing in the field. So was Grichuk. So, like, they just kind of said, hey, the corner outfield spot and DH together are going to be whichever guy the platoon's playing that day. You could do this internally. You could do this externally. You could combine this. Like Drake Baldwin. Brian Snitker protected him against lefties. He still hit 299 with an 8-something OPS against lefties. Sean Murphy did not have a good year. He hit 199 on the year, but he had an 805 OPS against lefties. So, like, if you wanted to just stick internal, you could say whoever the weak side of that platoon is just the catcher that's not behind the plate that day. And you could build yourself the short side of your DH platoon that way. For the right-handed hitting side, for the side hitting against right-handers, let me fix that, you probably have to bring somebody again, right? If you look at guys who have played in more than 80 games and hit better than 250, your list is like Ronald Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, Drake Baldwin, Austin Riley, Michael Harris. Other than Baldwin, all of those guys are going to be, in some form or fashion, in the lineup almost every single day. So you could bring in somebody who can play the field to take on the strong side of the platoon, to get the 400 at-bats, somebody who can play defense for you. So that way you can rotate Profar and Acuna through DH. You know, you can cover for one of them if they're injured for a week or whatever. And you could build a platoon using that catcher on the short side of the platoon, the weak side of the platoon, and this external addition on the strong side of the platoon. Mike Yastrzemski, grandson of Hall of Famer Carl Yastrzemski. Played all 3 outfield positions last year, mostly right field. Hit 256 against righties with an OPS like just over 800. It's not a fantastic power package. That's why the OPS wasn't great. 15 homers. It doesn't help you recreate Ozuna's like 39 or 40 a year, right? But he's a very good base runner. He's an above average defender. Again, he can cover center field for you. So if you pinch hit for Michael Harris late or something, you can, or if Harris misses it, you want to give him a day off before an off day, give him 2 days off, steal an extra day off there. You can let Yaz play center field for a day. Low chase, low whiff. He fits in with what Tim Hires wants to do. It's probably going to cost around $8 to $10 million bucks. You could argue that's a little pricey for a fourth outfielder. You're going to play him kind of like he's a third outfielder. You could make some other moves here. Jesus Sanchez, former Marlins outfielder that was traded to the Houston Astros. 2 years of team control. He's a good base runner. He's a hitter. More of a Kevin Seitzer kind of hitter than a Tim Hires kind of hitter, right? Like he hits the ball hard versus just putting the ball into play. But like you can build a DH in the aggregate. If you do want to bring in somebody to hit lefties, instead of relying on whichever catcher's not behind the plate, especially if you think Sean Murphy's not going to be ready to start the year, which I talked about on a show earlier last month, maybe, after I talked to a sports surgeon, you can bring in Austin Hayes. He hit .319 against lefties last year for the Reds. Rob Refsnyder, not nearly as good a defender as Austin Hayes, but he hit .302 against lefties with an OPS over 9. Like, you can bring in a guy to fill either side of the platoon. I don't think you bring in two guys that are both outfielders. That would give you 6 outfielders on the roster. Unless you're intent on using Eli White as a utility defender in the infield, it feels like a bad idea to bring in 2 outfielders. But you could bring in 1 and then use a catcher for the other side of the platoon. That way your bench would be, assuming that both catchers are in the lineup that day, let's make it easy, your bench would be Eli White, that second outfielder, and 2 infielders, unless you wanted to carry an extra catcher. Lots of different options there. You can figure out what to do. In just a minute, let's talk about some of the transactions that came across the wire on Tuesday. A couple interesting signings, and I think it reinforces a point I made last week about how teams are valuing players. We'll do that next right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby still kind of marveling at some of these World Series odds. The Braves have moved up from that group of NL clubs. Remember how I mentioned like plus 2,200 was the Brewers and the Cubs, and plus 2,000 was the Padres. Braves are now plus 1,900. This is more reflective of what the actual action's coming in on than them thinking that the signings that you've made so far have significantly moved the needle. One signing, for the most part in baseball, is not going to significantly move the needle unless it's somebody like Juan Soto. But I still find it interesting on FanDuel that the Braves have ticked up. And so right behind that mass of AL teams that are all in the teens on the odds, plus 1,200, plus 1,400, right? Mariners, Astros, Blue Jays, Red Sox. Right behind all of them, Braves lead the pack of 4 National League teams right there. Find that interesting. Okay, so a couple signings happen on Tuesday. The big Braves-related move was they brought in Danny Young on a split contract. Lefty reliever, was with the Mets for 2 seasons, working with Jeremy Hefner. Before that, he was a member of the Braves. He spent 2 years with Atlanta before signing with New York. If he makes Major League Baseball, like if he makes MLB, it'll be $925,000. And a lot of people are kind of surprised when they see, hey, like, okay, he'll make $1 million. He's had ERAs in New York of 4.50 across 46 innings with 21 walks, 261 strikeouts. We talked about this in the Dylan C show. Teams are paying for your stuff and your inputs and not your results. So Danny Young on like Stuff Plus models, they love him. It's technically a 3-pitch mix. He has a cutter that he barely uses like 3% of the time, but he's coming at you from a low sidearm slot. He's got a sinker. He's got a sweeper. The sinker both moves arm side more than normal and drops more than a normal sinker. The sweeper moves glove side more than normal. It is an absolutely wicked looking package. It is a ton of fun. The Stuff Plus models love him. He's going to be super cheap. When I did that reliever thing last week, this is what I asked for. Yes, you need to have some guys, some studs that you can build around. Raisel Iglesias is a stud you can build around, right? Dylan Lee is a guy you can build around. But because relievers are so fungible, grab dudes with awesome stuff, like what Danny Young has, and throw them in your pen. Throw them in your organization. They don't even necessarily have to make your major league bullpen. When you look at Danny Young, like, he had Tommy John in May. He's probably going to miss most of the year, but he has less than 2 full years of service. And so you're going to be able to have him on the team for 3 or 4 years, right? He's not going to cost you a lot. And you'll potentially be able to have him for a while. It's a very good signing from the perspective of the stuff is great. He doesn't cost a lot. He's got a bunch of control. So there are Braves fans who are mad about this. It's dumb to be mad about this. If this is the only other bullpen ad they make this year, yes, be mad about this. But this is the type of signing that every team makes. It just so happens that unlike last year's split or minor league deals, this is a dude, one, our pitching coach knows him already, and two, his stuff is really freaking good. Danny Young, provided he comes back the same from TJ, is your spiritual successor to Aaron Bummer at 1/10 the price. Aaron Bummer's salary this year is $9.5 million. What does he do? He's a sinker, sweeper, curveball guy. Danny Young, like lefty sidearm, sinker, sweeper, cutter guy. They're similar. They're not exactly the same because Bummer has that curveball. But for the most part, like, they are very similar in what they do. And he's 1/10 the cost. So be cool with it. Just be cool. It was one time. Just be cool. Other deals we saw, Alek Manoah, who Atlanta non-tendered. I had the whole thing about, can you fix him? Can you not fix him? What do they do? He signed a 1-year, $1.95 million contract with the Angels. It was a guaranteed deal, so he gets that money. Now, he has options. They can option him down to the minors. But still, this is something where it's a complete buy low. If they can fix him, they're going to be doing really well. If you remember, we talked about this. His arbitration projection was going to be a couple $1 million. They got him for cheaper. And again, if they can fix him, which Angels aren't known for pitching development, but if he does a lot of the work himself, then their rotation could be Yusei Kikuchi, Jose Soriano, maybe Reed Detmers can figure it out. He was in the bullpen last year. They did lose Tyler Anderson to free agency, but they traded for Grayson Rodriguez, right? They've got some prospects, Jack Chanowitz, Sam Odagieri, Caden Dana. Like, maybe they can find a starting 5 out of this whole group to at least give Mike Trout some decent pitching in front of him. The other noteworthy deal that I want to talk about is Cody Ponce. This is something where Cody Ponce went to Japan and then Korea because he was not very good. Okay. In 2020 and in 2021 for the Pirates, he pitched 38 1/3 innings with an ERA of 7.04. It's not good at all. 27 years old. So he goes to Japan. He spends 3 years in the NPB, ERA of mid-4s, over 200 innings. Kind of struggles. 165 strikeouts in 200 innings. Yes, Japan's full of a lot of contact hitters. You should be doing better than that. So he goes to the KBO, and he is absolutely freaking amazing in the KBO. 189 ERA in 29 starts, 180 and 2/3 innings. In 1 year, strikes out 252 with a 17-1 record. So he's the kind of guy that, like, he's coming back over and he's seen as better than he was when he left, clearly. And we've seen guys do this. Merrill Kelly went to Korea, came back and was good. Eric Fetty went to Korea, came back and was decent, and then got traded to the Cardinals and then started being bad, and then came to Atlanta and was really bad. But the difference in Ponce and these other guys is what it cost to sign Cody. So, by contrast here, Eric Fetty. When Eric Fetty signed in December of 2023, he, 2 years, $15 million. Like, he wasn't paid a ton of money despite being really good. When Merrill Kelly came back over, it was like, I think it was like 2 years, $5.5 million or something like that. It wasn't a really big deal. Cody Ponce, the deal that he got from Toronto, which means they've now signed both Dylan Cease and Cody Ponce, he got $30 million over 3 years. Because, as I said yesterday, teams are paying for stuff, not ERA. Eno Saris of The Athletic, one of the pitching gurus, right? He put a tweet out yesterday, probably in response to the Cease thing. I don't know, maybe not. Quote, lots of money and trade capital spent so far on pitchers with 4+ ERAs last year. Of course, those pitchers all still have great stuff and or great walk to strikeout rates. Don't use ERA to evaluate pitchers. Teams don't do it. It's the batting average of pitching. Some signal, more noise. The explanation here, ERA is a team stat, right? Your ERA is contingent on the ballpark you play in. It's contingent on the defense behind you, things that you cannot control. Fielding independent pitching tries to strip a lot of that out if you're not 100% aware of how fielding independent pitching works. Fielding independent pitching looks at only the things the pitcher can control. Strikeouts, walks, home runs. That's all it looks at. It's a little bit of a simplistic way, but it kind of gives you an idea of, is the guy's defense behind him hurting or helping his ERA? We've now gone a step lower. Expected ERA uses the batted ball profile of what is put into play and what that ball typically would be at that launch angle and that exit velocity. We now can even go a step deeper, and we have the pitch modeling, right? The Stuff Plus, where it tells us based on the movement of this pitch and how it compares to other comparable four-seam fastballs, right? You take other four-seam fastballs from righties with a 28 to 32 degree launch angle and this velocity, and this is how much they move compared to you. You move better than them, your score is higher, right? You move less than them, your score, like whatever. Like, that's kind of really rough and dirty on Stuff Plus. I was asked to do kind of an explainer for the Lindsay's Lab thing. We'll do that sometime, the next coming probably week or two. Breaking down all of the pitching nerd terms, going deep in what all this stuff means so that you know what I'm talking about when I start discussing some of these things. So Cody Ponce getting $30 million is kind of surprising. It's another example, as we've seen so many this year, about how just because a guy has an ERA of 4 or 5 in Bryce Elder's case doesn't mean they don't have value or they're not desirable. And so because of that, seeing things like the Danny Young signing on Tuesday morning, a dude with great stuff, a ton of control, who has to come back from injury, you should be excited about things like that because the stuff is good. Like Ponce, he came back from Korea. He's sitting like 96, 97. He was pitching like 93 with the Pirates, right? He has a kick change that's really good. You know, he's throwing multiple breaking balls, just tons. Like, looks like a completely different pitcher. Looks like a really good pitcher. I would not have been upset if the Braves had gone after Cody Ponce. I also don't know if we were the right team for Cody Ponce because we are looking for quality over quantity. And he is, despite having all the numbers on his pitch movement, it is a different baseball in Korea, right? The seams are different. It's the pre-tacked baseball. It is a different baseball in Korea. There is an adjustment period when you come to the States from Korea, from Japan. I would not have been opposed to a guy with Cody Ponce's stuff. I would rather have a prospect with that stuff than to guarantee a 3-year deal to a guy who you don't know how he has to adjust. So I'm not mad we missed out on Cody Ponce, but I do think it's another data point in the continued just insistence this winter. You have to understand these guys are going to be more expensive than you think they should be. Trades, free agency, whatever. They're going to be more expensive than you want them to be. A Pablo Lopez, Byron Buxton deal is going to hurt. And yes, Lopez had an ERA over 4 in a full season last year and then only made 14 starts this year. It's still going to hurt. It's still going to hurt. And we have to understand that. This has been Braves Today for Wednesday, December 3rd. Do me a favor. Listening on an audio, 5-star review would be fantastic. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when we drop the next episode. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.